So, you've probably heard the name Thales of Miletus, right? Maybe in a math class somewhere. But forget about triangles for just a minute. We're about to talk about the man who, more than 2,600 years ago, completely rewired how humanity explains reality itself. He didn't just add to science. You could absolutely make the case that he invented the very idea of it.
Now, to really get how big a deal Thales was, you first have to picture the world he was born into. Just imagine trying to explain an earthquake or a flood or even why the sun rises, but you have zero concept of natural laws. For the entire ancient world, the answer was always simple and it was always the same. The gods did it.
So this was the mindset, you know? The world wasn't a system to be figured out. It was a cosmic drama playing out. An earthquake? Oh, that wasn't tectonic plates. That was the sea god Poseidon throwing a tantrum and shaking the earth. The sun moving across the sky? That was Apollo driving his fiery chariot. Every single thing that happened was just another page in a supernatural story.
Okay, so this worldview, where myth and reality were totally tangled together, is the backdrop for our story. It's a world explained by divine moods and epic tales. And it's into this world that a man from the buzzing port city of Miletus is about to step. So who is this guy Thales? Well, he wasn't some monk meditating on a mountaintop. He was a product of his home, Miletus, which was this incredible crossroads of culture, trade, and ideas. And Thales wasn't just a thinker. He was known first and foremost as a man of action, an engineer, an astronomer, a man who got things done.
Let's just place him in time for a second. We're talking the 6th century BCE, but the one date that really made him a legend is right there in the middle, May 28th, 585 BCE, because on that day, a total solar eclipse happened, plunging a battlefield into sudden darkness, and it was an event he had supposedly predicted.
And get this, that made him the first known person in the Greek world to predict something like that. So, how do you do it? It wasn't some divine vision. It was something way more powerful. Data. He probably used astronomical records from the Babylonians, spotted patterns, saw the cycles, and made a rational prediction. He actually predicted the year of the eclipse. The fact that it stopped a war in its tracks was just an unbelievable coincidence that turned him into an icon overnight.
But his genius wasn't just about looking at the stars. The historian Herodotus tells us he was a mind-blowing engineer. The story goes that King Croesus' army was stuck at the massive Halys River with no way to get across, so Thales apparently just dug a new channel, diverted the river, and the whole army marched through. He literally bent the landscape to his will.
And he was a brilliant mathematician, too. On a trip to Egypt, he was supposedly challenged to measure the height of the Great Pyramids. His solution was just pure genius. He waited for the exact time of day when his own shadow was the same length as his body. At that precise moment, he measured the pyramid's shadow, knowing it had to be equal to the pyramid's real height. Simple, elegant, problem solved.
Of course, when you have a mind that's always thinking on that level, you get some pretty great stories. Plato tells this one about Thales being so obsessed with watching the stars that he just fell right into a well. And a servant girl supposedly laughed at him, saying he was so busy trying to figure out what was in the sky, he couldn't even see what was right at his feet. It's the original absent-minded professor joke.
But don't let that story fool you, because Aristotle tells a different one that gives us the other side of Thales. When people started teasing him, saying his philosophy was useless because it couldn't make him any money, Thales used his knowledge of weather patterns to predict a massive olive harvest. So he quietly went and put a deposit on every single olive press in the area. When the huge harvest came, suddenly he had a monopoly, and he made an absolute fortune. He proved that a philosopher could get rich, he just usually had more important things to think about.
But all of that practical stuff, all those clever tricks, that was just the warm-up act. Thales' real genius, his world-changing contribution, came from a question so simple and yet so profound it would alter human history. He looked at everything in the world, rocks, clouds, trees, people, and he asked, is it all somehow made of the same thing?
He was looking for what the Greeks later called the arche, the first principle, the fundamental stuff of reality. Think about how radical that question is. He wasn't asking which god made everything. He was asking what everything is made of. It's the same quest that drives physicists today as they search for a theory of everything. And his big answer? Water. Now I know what you're thinking. Water? That's obviously wrong. And you're right. But hang on, because the genius here isn't in the answer. It's in the kind of answer he gave. He didn't say it was a spirit or a god. He proposed a natural, observable thing. He saw water was crucial for life. He saw it could be a solid, a liquid, and a gas. And from that, he made a logical leap that it was the building block for everything.
And this, right here, is the main event. This is the moment Thales triggers a massive shift in human thought. It's the move away from mythos, explaining the world with stories about gods, to logos, explaining the world using reason, logic, and observation. I mean, just think about the guts that took. For thousands of years, the answer to why was there an earthquake was a story about Poseidon. Thales was the first to say, hold on, what if it's a natural process? He was suggesting that the universe isn't just some chaotic drama based on the whims of the gods. He was saying it's an ordered, understandable system, a cosmos.
And you can see this new method in his other ideas. The annual flooding of the Nile River in Egypt was this huge religious mystery. Thales came along and offered a completely natural explanation. He guessed that strong summer winds blew inland from the sea, essentially blocking the river's mouth and causing the water to back up and flood. Now, he was wrong about the cause, but that's not the point. He was explaining nature with more nature. It was a hypothesis. You could actually go and check it.
So, what's the big takeaway from all this? Why do we still talk about this guy from an ancient Greek city? Because his legacy isn't about being right. His legacy is an entirely new way of seeing the world.
He's called the very first philosopher in the West for this exact reason. He was the first to even try to explain the world without using gods. And he didn't just have an idea, he started a movement. His students, like Anaximenes and Anaximenes, didn't just blindly follow him. They argued with him, they challenged his ideas, and they proposed their own. And that process of questioning your teacher and looking for a better explanation, that is the birth of all science and all philosophy.
So, when you really boil it all down, here's what matters. Thales was wrong about water, but his true lasting legacy wasn't his answer at all. It was his question. By asking, what is the world made of, instead of which god made it, he gave us the key that would eventually unlock the secrets of the universe. He didn't teach us what to think, he taught us how to think.
Thales initiated rational inquiry by proposing that water was a fundamental principle of all reality, moving explanations away from divine intervention and mythology.